This is Andy Morales, and welcome to episode 4 of the Jandom Sessions Live. I am excited to announce that I have a new co-host with me, Leon Jones. Brother, how are you?
Hey man, no complaints, just trying to live life day by day and, make it the best way I can.
Awesome. So, for those who don't know, tell these people where Living Canvas came from.
All right. Well, the name Living Canvas um, is a very interesting one. So I see it as this point. In the book of Ephesians, it says we are God's workmanship. And I've always seen mankind as a beautiful living canvas, as walking portraits. And there's even a poem I made about this concept where I say, what blotches are you putting on your canvas? And what I mean by the blotches are the things you do in your life, the emotions you output, the energy you output, your legacy. Ultimately, when you see a painter with his stick and just making these broad strokes of his creativity.
Okay.
And so I related and correlated the same way to the way we live our lives.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's pretty creative. I never even thought about it like that. That's so cool because that's true. It's like we all paint pictures of ourselves, but only God is the painter. God paints the actual picture of who He has called us to be. That's the way I seen it based on what you've told me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man, but I gotta say, man, it's been so long since we've had a conversation, and knowing that I'm proud to announce that you are officially my co-host now moving forward, and we're still gonna do the interviews and stuff. But the fact that now you have become my co-host, it's an honor and a privilege, bro. I think it's just a negative. I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean. It's just made sense that it happened now. Speaking of doing things together, I mean, I think we should address some elephants in the room. When we first tried to do Psalms United,
Yes, yes.
I think we could
It
both agree it was just premature, I guess.
it was the passion was there, the motivation was there, absolutely. It was out of season is what it really
Yeah.
was. It was an out of season um attempt because the concept of Psalms United, it was a beautiful, it was a beautiful creation. It was a beautiful concept. Just it wasn't in the right season for that thing to have fruition and grow like it should have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think too, I think spiritually, I think, I don't know about you, but I know for me, I think spiritually, I don't think I was actually in the right place, and I didn't know I wasn't in the right place of mind, if that makes sense. Because I was still going through some things too, and I think you, it's like when you worship unto God, you can't, you gotta worship in spirit and in truth, and I don't think I was
Yes.
100% doing that.
Yeah, and to be completely honest with you, I wasn't there either. I was not there either. And so that's why it just kind of fell apart. And I feel that with this podcast being in the year 2023, everything has gone full circle.
Yeah, I gotta say because, all right, so I guess I might as well address my thing where the name, because I mean, people have asked me in interviews before, but I don't think I've actually sat down and actually talked about it. But the so I gotta talk about how it all started and why it started this way. And I'm mostly gonna address some things, and it is what it is. People might get mad, but it is what it is, depending who's listening to it. But the way I started poetry on Instagram was back in 2018. This was after my dad died. I wanted to do something with my life. I said, damn, this can't be just work, home, do nothing, and bullshit, and do whatever. And I'm like, yo, I gotta do something, put myself out there, because I want to put poetry out there. Let's be honest, I feel like poetry is underrated. It's not. there's not a lot of platforms to display your work in that way. There's a lot of artwork and dancing and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of poetic thing like back in the Allen Ginsberg days, where in the 60s and the 70s, where it had a lasting impact.
Yes.
And long story short, so I was looking at some things and everybody had these cool, catchy ass names, and I was like, you know what? So I'm gonna say jam them down. Screw it. Instead of write them down, it's jam them down. But what the reason why jam is because my legal name, that is my initials, JAM.
Ah, okay.
So that's where the jam comes from. Because my
Okay.
initials is jam, so jam them down. That's how I came up to. So when I first got recognized into the poetic community scene, it was Poets Anonymous. Zillion Poetry had
Yes.
tagged me in
Remember them.
something, and I'm just like, wait, who's tagging me in this? I'm like, oh wait, there's a live. So I know at that time you couldn't record lives didn't stay on. It was only to 24 hours replay, and then it disappeared. So I took another camera phone that I had and recorded the thing that way, which I still have to this very day. And everything just took off from there. Poets Anonymous, I would check out the lives, and then from there I met Brian Edwards, and then from Brian because he started reading my pieces too. And Brian Edwards doesn't read anybody. He doesn't just read anybody. He reads something that's really uplifting, something that's really expect that how he relates to. That's what they about Brian Edwards. He doesn't just read anybody. So he read a piece that I wrote called "From Your Youngest Son." I had wrote that March, April, May, June. Pretty much 3 months after my father passed away, I had wrote that piece. And he had that resonated with him in such a profound way. And then me and him was just talking back and forth, DMing each other. And then he was doing Matt Props live. I don't know what happened to that, but
Yeah, that kind of fell apart. I believe Jared was one of the people part of it. It was, I think, Jared and I could be thinking of another account, but I think it was Jared and the girl and somebody else. But yeah, I was a part of that scene as well, where they would have like daily prompts and everything each week.
yeah. So I remember oh my god, whatchamacallit. So that's how I knew, because he was doing these open mics. He would do the sounds off.
Yes.
That's what Brian Edwards was doing. He was doing it there. He was doing it Poets Anonymous and stuff like that. And then when I did my first ever live, so it's funny because I figured, you know what, let me do something that relates to the name. It'd be cool because they had these Mad Props Live and Poets Anonymous, and Your Heart Beats Loud was another one because Brett Allen Hart was in it. And that's how I met Natalie, who I consider one of my great friends, even though I haven't spoken to her in so long, but because I know everybody's going through some stuff. But Natalie and Brett had welcomed me in. And I used to enjoy that so much. Her and this other girl named Adriana that used to always be on the chats. But anyway, so jammed them down when I first, and it was through those people that I wanted to do my own live. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I did my first live. And I had these poets, okay, like I'm gonna read your pieces and stuff like that. It's my first time. I was nervous. I was fucking up a lot, but people loved the fact that I was able to have a conversation. In the second live, I read live, and then I did like an open mic where people would just. But it's like I wish I knew then what I knew now, because if I could have recorded these episodes, these lives, and make them into episodes, because it was so profound. It was so organic. So that's where the Jam Them Sessions live came from. Jam them down, jam them sessions live. And then when Joe Steele told me about podcasting and Anchor, that's when I decided to turn it into a podcast. So I've had some few attempts and they weren't that great, but it was one of those, I'm trying to find my shell, I guess, if that makes sense. And it got to that point where now here we are 3-4 years later now, and this podcast is already on its third season, and I could honestly say it's been through a lot of ups and downs, because my poetry page became a community page when Your Heart Beats Live, Your Heart Beats Loud, and your what's the other one, Mad Props Live, all these other community started to leave due to unfortunate circumstances. And I said, I want to open up my own thing. and Jammed Them Down became a thing, and eventually it became Ink Sessions Live, and I had a whole team. But what all comes down to is there was just a lot of creative differences. I'm just calling it what it is,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's just what it is. And sometimes the commitment, the excitement wasn't as there. I'm not saying they weren't committed, but I guess I saw it from a different perspective that we weren't all on the same page, and that's something I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn the hard way. Well, not everybody sees your visions the same way, even though my intentions were good, but it was one of those things that it was just me and Robin Leoras, and then it just officially died after that. And then I said, all right, and then I turned it back to just the Andy Morales. It's just what it is. But I kept the Jandom Sessions name live name as the podcast, and then I had a hiatus, and then I said that, you know what, I'm gonna just do it and that's it. And I want to thank Carlos Medina from Mage Soul Poetry for pushing me to continue this because it needs to be had. And you know, here we are now, again 3-4 years later on the third season, and now you're officially my co-host. So it's just like it's crazy, you know. But let's be honest, I mean, you know, even though I've been blessed by this community, but I've witnessed a lot of weirdness too. I mean, let's just call it what it
Yeah.
is.
It's not. I feel like a lot of brokenness has happened in the community from when I first started, and I actually got introduced into the poetry community that by an account I had, which unfortunately was disabled because I was doing poetry, but I was also doing body art. And yeah, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole
And
nother story.
that's a whole nother story. And I lost.
Weren't you in another page also with Brett? Didn't you have a community page you used to do with him?
Yeah, I actually was part of. Um, yeah, I was actually part of poets. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember. I was actually part of a couple groups, but I originally got started with Ink Innovators. That was one of the first groups I was part of.
Okay, I think I remember
And then
that one.
Poetry Battles. So Poetry Battles, I remember Poetry Battles was where I really kicked off. Poetry Battles and Ink Innovators. And I remember I had written like this prompt. It was part of a prompt, and I had just, randomly jumped on it. And all of a sudden, like, out of all these other poets, I was number one. And I was like,
Nice.
"What? Really?" I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Y'all really think I'm not good?" And then from there, it kicked off me being a part of Poetry Battles and Ink Innovators. And then from there, that's where I started meeting other poets, and we're all kind of connected. And I was with them for a while, then I like left out of it just became a little too much for me. And then once again, I got connected with I keep wanting to say Poets Anonymous, but that's not who I was connected with. Um, it was a poetry page where it was poets who would come together. We would do a topic, and then from that topic, two poets with different styles would come together and basically just
Oh,
vibe on.
collaborate. Oh my god, I remember that because I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name, but I remember the community page because that's actually because that Ink Innovators. That's why I first saw you and Brett. You guys did a live
Yes,
together, and I remember
yes,
that. And then I remember that other page. It was like a collaboration piece, right?
yes.
Because Stacy Conventry. That's how I met Stacy Conventry. That's how I met the other guy that did I forgot his name, but he used to do Anti-Poetic Revolution with
Mm-hmm.
Raging, no, not Raging, what's her name? Oh my god, Willow, Black Willow, I think it was. They were doing that together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I met Stacy Conventry, because me and Stacy Conventry did a piece together called La Mierda Libre, which means the flying fuck, pretty much in Spanish.
Oh
And
wow.
we was
Yo.
talk and basically we was doing it was a piece about us talking to cancer and rebuking and just talking like, yo, you a piece of shit, like pretty much talking down to cancer because they took both our parents, because cancer
Mm.
took her mom and cancer took my father.
Yeah.
And we had this
Wow.
thing, like I did a piece and she did a piece, and it was just one of those things that it just became such an organic thing between me and her. And she was going through a lot of stuff. I'm not gonna put her whole business out there just out of respect, but I will say this: I remember there was people, like certain people, like stalking her and shit like that. So it was just like a whole fucking thing, and like that's why she hasn't really been on Instagram like that. But when I do get a chance, I do talk to her from time to time, check up on her, because she's one of those people that I do worry about a lot, because I had friends that relate to her that they're not in this life anymore, and it's one of those, I can't lose another person, I can't lose another friend, I just can't, and but that's how I remember that. What's so funny, because I think that was what, like 2018, but more going like 2019, 2020ish. That's when I noticed, once the lockdown happened, that's when I noticed that oh my god, what the fuck was it? That's when other poetry community pages started coming up that I never even heard of. Like Untwined was another one.
Yeah, yeah. I will say this. I would say, like, during the time of the lockdown, I felt like
Everyone was going
the poetry
live.
community peaked. That was when the poetry community peaked, between 2019 and like into the middle of 2021.
Yeah,
Because I remember
yeah.
during that time, that is when all these different poetry communities just popped up. And also during that time was when my creativity for writing poetry was really at its peak. I was writing poetry all the time during the time of the lockdown. And actually, I got published, and I got published multiple times.
Oh
Like,
yeah, the Poetic Symphony, right? Because Brandon White was
Poetic
a part of
Symphony.
that. Brandon White, who's I consider
Yes,
a
and
good
that was through
friend.
Tara Caribou, who is a really good. Tara Caribou is still a good friend of mine, and we still talk a lot. But
Yeah,
she always supported me.
Yeah, we gotta get her on the show. We have to,
Oh,
bro.
absolutely, absolutely. I need, because she's such a creative woman, and then I just had to look it up. So the group I used to be a part of was called Poetic Duets.
Yes, poetic duets. Yes. Oh my god. Okay, so that should be the topic right now. Just the whole. Oh my god, because dude, you gotta understand something. When that happened, when the lockdown happened, I was going live every week or every other day. I drove my wife crazy with
Yep.
that. But that's because that's when Jam Them Down was peak. Yeah, I think that's what it was, because everybody was peaking. Let's be real. It was peaking
Yeah. I
during
was
that whole
peaking. Everybody
time.
was peaking.
Yes, and more people would join live, because I would get 20, 30, 50 people max. I've had that. And
Yes.
then me, because especially when it was me and Robin doing the live, or me and Zine Zelinsky was another one, or me, Ash LaPearl, I think her name was, who she goes by Ash Gypsy, Amanda Springs. It was us, and every day, every week. Yeah, and then I had another girl named Robin with the other guy. I forgot the other guy's name. But they were doing lives on Tuesday night, because that's where Your Heart Beats Loud used to be in, and then we took over that slot. Now the thing that was annoying, I don't know if you experienced this, but I did, where I've had people hit me up and tell me that I'm going over their live.
Yeah.
That's
Because
when it started getting fucking ridiculous. I mean, no, you know
yeah,
what? Look,
because a lot of people, like,
this
there
is a
were even like,
non-filter. I just want to say this is a non-filter podcast. We can talk about whatever, raw. I don't give a shit. So this is what it is. Let's just be
yeah.
real.
So a lot of people during that time, and it's funny because
They're
I
acting like
was
bitches. Let's just call it what the fuck it is, bro.
I was like, you're more raw than I am. I'm trying to be more civil about the whole situation. Like, but there'd be like 3 or 4 different lives of community groups, and I always wanted to be supportive of everybody.
Me
So I'll
too.
be hopping on like one live for 10 minutes, hop on another live for 10 minutes, hop on another live for 10 minutes. I would just be jumping back and forth just to be like, yo, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Because I just wanted
Yeah.
to hear everybody. I wanted to be supportive of
Oh
everybody.
my god,
It was it was
bro.
it was wild.
It was what? Yeah, 2020 was ridiculous, because although the community, I think it broke. See, but that's what I'm saying. How can something grow so big like that? But then once everything's gone, as everybody's back to their lives. I get it, we work, whatever. But it's like, how can poetry not be a impactful thing? You would think we could grow from there to make it bigger. Because
Yeah, like
when I was talking to Robin Charbonneau, it was like we was like there has to be something to make it so profound. And it's so funny because he just pulled it up. Actually, no, hold on. There's actual in a article that a little post that he put that talks about is poetry dead, like, and it was like a whole conversation. And I was talking to Robert. I said, hey Robert, we have to do a an episode now that, because I said, yo, we gotta talk about this because he wants to do a live. And I said, yo, I got, now that you and me are talking about this, I'm gonna hit up Robert, but we have to do an episode about this. Is poetry dead? And there's like a whole post he said. And one thing I found very interesting is, hold on, where is it? I think it's safe to say, whether or not the premise is true, the perception that poetry is defunct art form is absolutely true. Even though those who do not believe it must argue against it as their starting point. They must defend poetry by saying that it is still alive and well, and there are still plenty of poets doing good work. And yet, despite these protests, the larger culture seems to shrug. A 2015 poll from the Survey of Public Participation in the Arts found that since 2002, the share of poetry readers have contracted by 45%. The number of people who have read a poetry book in the last 12 months was less than 10%. Despite advocates of poetry pointing to thriving scenes on social media and in poetry slams, and in the success of poets like Rupi Kaur and Amanda Gorman, the larger public is mostly uninterested. What do you think about that? This is by Robert Charbonneau, by the way. I'm gonna tag him. He's probably gonna be like, okay, oh, this is why I'm getting tagged in. Okay, but anyway, but what do you think about that? It's like, I feel like it's, I don't know, like because back in the 70s and 60s and 50s, poetry was a big impactful role in civilization. A lot of people don't know this, but back in the 50s, because this when I had Tony Trujillo from he was a professor from Columbia University in Chicago. He, one thing that we were talking about in this one episode, season 2, we said, well, Allen Ginsberg talked about topics that were very frowned upon at that time. There was the Beat Generation. So that Beat Generation was the bridge to the hippie era. That was the bridge.
Right.
Because that's when there was shrooms, that's when there was marijuana, there was all these things coming out, and they were very countercultural, and poetry and words and thoughts had a big impact. So my question is, how can we go back to that? Because it seems like there's a lot of people trying to do that, and then when we had the opportunity, I'm going to be brutally honest, I think we allowed the stupidity and the pridefulness of that get in the way of what could have been a more profound thing even after the pandemic took place. That's what I think. What are your thoughts?
Because I do feel during the time of the lockdown, definitely there was a renaissance and a resurgence in the interest of poetry. Because, poetry is something where, like, it speaks to the very depths of the soul, to the very depths of the consciousness. And poetry is very therapeutic. I mean, I will tell you, it is because of the gift, the God-given gift of writing and creating, that really helped me get through 2020.
Yeah.
And I really thrived in there because I really thrived during that time, because even though it was like the worst of times, I mean, during 2020, so much had happened. It just wasn't the lockdown, but I had lost my Nana. I had lost a roommate who had passed away. I had lost a best friend who died from a drug overdose. I had lost my job of 5 years. I had lost all of this within a span of a couple of months. Yet during this time, my creativity peaked. And then there was the whole big thing of, like, Black Lives Matter, that whole
Oh my
protest.
God, bro.
And then not just that, but protests of everything. And then all of these things were just hitting me. So all these things that you thought would have been, oh, these things are going to break you, these things are going to destroy you, it really made my creativity peak because I had so much on my mind. I felt like if I didn't put it out, I was going to implode from the inside out. And so during that time, I feel a lot of people felt that way. And poetry was used as the driving vehicle and outlet to be able to express their feelings in a multifaceted ways. And
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is so interesting too. You know why? Because it was during that time. That's when I got okay, because I used there was a person I follow on Instagram that she used to go to my church, and she was a poet, very very well known. Her name was Leah James, and through her, there was these other stuff, because sometimes on Instagram you could click on people and then there's suggestions and stuff. And this one they started doing suggestions like really really hardcore, and through
yes.
her I got introduced to Poetic Boy D. And then there was another person by the name of Erica Martyr, especially her because she kind of had some controversy on her community. She didn't do she did poetry, but she did more like like dancing and stuff like that. But she was the
Okay.
kind of person that she kind of like, okay, like if she has something to say, she's very outspoken person, and she was
Hmm.
part of the. She was actually she was very big in the Black Lives Matter part where there was actually an article about her. And
Wow.
one thing she talked about, and I gotta reach out to her one day. But there was a moment where it was her and somebody else, and she said, "If my people ever hurt you, I'm sorry." And they did like this whole hug thing, like, and there was an article about it. Like, let's just be honest. I think that's one of those few times in this generation of society that people actually got together, like, started to realize, like, oh shit, like what's going on. And it's so crazy to me
Yes.
because this was during the time too where WWE was doing that WWE backstage, and then they started doing the video stuff. And the rest of CM Punk says something very profound, and this is a white guy saying this, and I'm just quoting what was said. I'm not gonna remember exactly how he said it, but he said he was talking to another wrestler named Mark Henry, and he was saying how,
Mark Henry. Okay.
yeah, so he was telling Mark Henry, well, okay, see, if I get stopped by the police, this is CM Punk saying that. He said if he gets stopped by the police, he's afraid he's gonna get a ticket. If your son, who's black, gets stopped by the police, he's afraid he's gonna get murdered. And it's
Hmm.
gotten to a point where we need to get together and realize if a lot of people just shut up more and listen more and try to understand where the other party's coming from, maybe it wouldn't be as crazy. And then he said, let's be honest, like white people are more privileged. And this is a white guy saying this. This is what CM Punk said. And I'm like, you know what? It's true. Like, if we just shut up more and listen more, I think we could have a better understanding of civilization itself. Because I think, now, this is me talking now. I feel the problem is with society, we always want to be first. We always want to be right. But how
Hmm.
can we be right if we don't understand the full scope of something? Just because I didn't
Exactly.
experience something does not mean that I don't understand. Maybe I'm not gonna understand the full scope because I never experienced it, but I'll
Exactly.
have an understanding. But help me understand you so we could come to a common ground. And I think that's the
Yes.
problem.
And see, what happens is a lot of people, because they didn't have your life experience, they invalidate what you have to say. Even if you have like what well, the slang what they use. I got the receipts. You can bring the receipts, the evidence, the facts, and it's like it is a cognitive dissonance to that other party that you're trying to explain. And some people are not good at explaining what's going on. Some people are. Some people can consciously just know how to break it down line by line, layer by layer, and still there is this mental blockage, this cognitive dissonance of I still don't understand. And then I think at that point it's you don't want to understand
But
because I feel it will break your bubble and perception of the reality that's been built up for you.
do you think that's what? But do you think that's where narcissism comes from, though, too?
I would say, yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, it is a bit of narcissism and pride weaved in together. Because even if there's some points you disagree on, you should try to understand the other side, the other party. When people say, "Well, let's agree to disagree," but then I can understand your situation, and it's also a lack of empathy. It's also a lack of empathy, and then you have to remember, unfortunately, um, the culture we live in still in 2023, it is still this very volatile culture where it feels that at any moment there's just going to be that keg explosion of
Yeah. Oh
chaos.
my God, it's so true, bro. Like, yo, bro, it's like when we were talking privately. I remember saying, bro, remember how I said, yeah, I think it was yesterday. I was like, bro, I think we have to do this and start recording, bro. And I think I was basically right because, dude, so much came out of this doing this episode on the fly, basically. And it's so profound. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is what it's supposed to be: words, expression, and just like, let's tell it like it is. Let's, what are people not talking about? And it's so crazy to me because I'm like, wow, like, this is really a thing. This is really happening. That's amazing. Like, hey, let's fucking do this shit. And it's so crazy how, look how much came out of just doing this right now, you know? And it's just like, I was just everything you just said. I've been feeling like this for years, and it's
And
just
that,
like, bro.
I have to tell you a testimony of me, a story of me. And this is a pub crowd example. Now, me, I was born in Newark, New Jersey, okay? And my mom, she didn't want me to like live in the hood or anything. So I was raised in a predominantly like white town in New Jersey. Like you could really count the black people on your fingers.
Wow.
That's, I mean, I'm not even, I, I'm not even lying about this. This is true. I was one of the very few black people in this town. So, I was raised around like white people like all my life, and I racism. I didn't really. I would get microaggression racism. I understand that now, but for the most part, my growing up was good. I didn't have like racial slurs thrown at me by main people or anything like that. It wasn't like I don't have any horror stories to tell you. But I will tell you this though. I mean, there was still certain incidences that happened to me. One time I was with two of my friends. We were walking from the park. This was around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and we were like young teenagers then. Then all of a sudden, this cop stops us, and these cops stop us. There's like two cops. So then there's my friend. There's my one white friend, and then there's me, and then there's my other friend, um, and she's black. They tell my white friend, "Oh, you can go," and they pretty much interrogate me and her for a good part of 5 to 8 minutes, and she leaves because her mom is calling her, so they allow her to go. But then they interrogate me and just questioning, just asking me silly stuff like, "What are you doing out here so late?" And you know, was anybody else with you? All these crazy things, only to find out down the line the reason why there was so many private cops on the time. Like down the line, there was this like drug bust, but it was this like white guy who was doing it. But yet they're questioning like teenagers.
Wow.
That, yeah, yeah. And then there was another point where I lived in Newton, New Jersey, which is another small town, and I was out. This is crazy how this happened. I used to always carry a book bag, and in this book bag, I had a notepad, pen, pencils, and I always carried CDs and stuff. It was straight '90s style.
CDs.
Yeah, CDs. We taking
Wow.
it back. CDs. Yes, the CDs. Yeah, and this was like 2004 when this happened, and so I remember I just had met these kids. Never really hung out with them before, but I've always had the ability to, being an extrovert, I've always had the ability to be able to talk to people and, get things going and stuff and in a positive way. And so they thought it was really cool to talk with them. Like, hey, yo, we got this party. Um, we're going, do you want to come? I'm like, oh yeah, sure, sure. So I went up with I went over to this girl's house. She had a party in her basement. We're all hanging out, having a good time, partying. I put my CDs on and everything, and pretty much I felt like I'm the DJ there because I'm just playing all these new CDs I had. And then a fight,
CDs. Oh my
yeah.
god,
And then a fight,
bro.
and then a fight breaks out between these two guys, and I'm trying to be the mediator to break it up, and they still keep it going and everything. And then they go upstairs to go fight outside, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna call the cops." I'm like, "Oh God, if they call the cops, it's really gonna be," because here I am, I'm like black kid in the midst of all these like white kids, you know, and
Wow.
so the cops get called to to break up the fight between these two, and then the cops tell us to line up. And I was 20 at the time. Everybody else was, you know, 18, 17, 16. And then I'm standing next to this one guy and I'm like, watch who they're going to question first. It ain't even going to be them. It's going to be me. Like, nah, bro, you're cool, dude. Why would they do that? And I'm like, watch this. And I'm telling you, like clockwork, they came up to me, started questioning me like how old I was, like 20. And all of a sudden, like, 20? What are you doing hanging out with 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds? And I was like, wait, what? It was like, I was just here at the party. It's like, what's in your book bag? CDs. So then they'll question me if I was some drug dealer or something, like just because I had a book bag on. And then I couldn't even go back downstairs to get like any of my CDs. So I lost a lot of my CDs that night, all because of this
Wow.
stupid fight that broke out between two people.
Oh my
And
god.
I was
Wow.
never able to go back to that house, and it was just really ridiculous. But just from there, it showed like all these other kids they were at the party, but you gonna question me first.
It just comes to show, yeah, like it's just like the perception has changed because what you were probably used to, now it's like, wait, my perception's changed now because I never went through this. Now I'm going through it. Like it's like
Yes,
you hear about
exactly.
it all the time, but it's like,
Hmm.
oh shit, what the fuck's going on? You know, what's funny too. I have this conversation with my wife too, because my wife Hispanic. She's Puerto Rican, Mexican, and not Italian, and Peruvian, right? I'm Puerto Rican, so I grew up in Brooklyn, Bushwick. Back in the day, Bushwick was not a good place to live. I mean, it still isn't a good place to live. It's not as bad as before because gentrification and all this bullshit that happened. But,
Yeah, yeah,
and even Williamsburg too. Now it's like it's a whole different. I feel like I'm in Soho in Manhattan and shit. But
yeah.
it's crazy to me because I was saying to my wife, well, where my mom lives, especially, it wasn't always like this. There was a lot
Hmm.
of white people, a little bit of everybody, but mostly white people, and it's so crazy because let me not say what, maybe Caucasians, whatever you want to call it, right? But my whole thing is, like that wasn't the best place to live. Like when I said it was the ghetto, like the hood, like every other weekend there was always someone getting shot up on the block. Like that's just what I grew up in. See, my wife, like she gets it, she understands, but she doesn't really understand it how I would understand it, only because she's never lived in the ghetto. Like her mom refused to live in that fixed income society, so she bust the
Hmm.
ass so my wife can pretty much her daughter could have the life that she had and stuff like that. So yeah, she lived in Brighton Beach, but she hung out in Coley Island, and some parts were ghetto, some parts weren't that bad, but there was particular parks everybody played handball. That was the thing of her time because remember, she's 7 years older than I am, so when I was 10 she was already what, 17 and shit.
Yeah.
She was playing jump rope while I was fucking watching wrestling and Monday Night Raw and shit, on TV because I was sheltered and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like she worked at the
Yeah.
airport where I was still in high school. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
Right.
civilization has changed so much that when I was growing up, even when I did go outside with my mom or my parents or whatever, it was like, oh, we're gonna go to the park. Now motherfuckers are like, we hang out on the pier on our phones and smoking a blunt. Like that's how it is today. It was different when I was growing up. It wasn't like that. I mean, I'm only 37 years old, but like let's be real. Like I feel like so much has changed
Oh my
dramatically.
gosh. I mean, technology. I mean, I was literally talking to one of my best friends, and he's younger than me. He's 22. Um, and he asked me, how was it for you growing up? And I told him a lot of the times, when I look at where we are now, I feel like I live in a different dimension or a different reality. It feels so foreign
Yeah,
to me.
it's
Everything
crazy.
feels so strange to me.
Ooh, ooh.
I remember
You just reminded me of something. When you're done, let me know. Oh, you just reminded me of something.
I remember playing at the park. I remember I used to like hang out with my friends, and we used to go play manhunt, tag, what have you. We used to play out in the park or whatever until you know the evening time and stuff. And we just used to have fun, just running around.
Yeah,
And
or
if we
you had
went
a
to an
water
act,
gun when it was okay to have a
right,
water
exactly, or having
gun
water
and
guns.
Nerf
We
guns
used
and
to
shit.
we Nerf guns. We used to play at the basketball court. We used to build leaf forts in the fall and build like snow forts in the winter. You know what I mean?
Oh my
We were
god,
very active. And then it's
bro,
like,
freaking hopscotch, bro. Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
hopscotch. Oh my God, hopscotch. We used to go on the swings and in the merry-go-rounds and go down the slides, and we used to make up all these
Dude,
imaginary
before
games.
when text messaging was passing a note in class, bro.
Oh my God, yeah, 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 man. And then, yeah,
Oh
it
my
was such
god.
a it was such a more simpler time. You know what I mean? And
That's what
then,
I'm saying. Like, even though despite the bullshit that was going on, but I think the generation before us, they did a good job of kind of keeping us away of the curve, if that makes sense. In
yeah,
opposed to now, everybody's exposed to everything. I'm not saying I wasn't. I mean, listen, I was exposed to stuff that I didn't really understand. That, and I came from. Now, let's go back to my childhood. That back to what I was saying before about my wife. She's not really gonna understand my struggle in that way. Like, she gets it, but she's not gonna really understand because she never experienced it. She never lived in the ghetto. She never lived in the hood. You know, like same thing with you. Like you were saying, even though you were black, but you never really lived in the ghetto because your mom didn't want that for you. So with
right,
me,
exactly.
unfortunately, I lived in that society where, you know, again, people were getting shot up in the block maybe every other weekend, or they would do block parties, but then always a fight broke out, or somebody had beef with someone from another neighborhood because Best Buy was not that far. It was that literally
Yeah,
walking distance from where I used to live. And again, the slangs were different, the conversations were different. And you know, people used to get shot just for a quarter. Like I've seen it happen. Like but dang, I lived in a culture where, okay, my father was Puerto Rican, 1950s. He was very old school. He like whatever happens out there cannot happen to us. Like that was how he was. He was very controlling. He was that's just how my dad was. But you know, and I understand he tried the best he could to do whatever he could, but realistically speaking, let's be real, it was also a difficult time because, you know, like this is stuff he didn't really understand. He came from the island of Puerto Rico. Like that civilization was different. So, and this is around the time where mental health was a thing. Well, it wasn't really a thing. It was a thing, but no one talked about it because they were like, "Oh, you'll get over it," or "Stop being a baby."
exactly,
And that's
exactly.
how it was. And it's like, you know, just the struggle of trying to get through childhood knowing these things. I thought it was never gonna end. I'll be honest with you. I've had suicidal attempts. I've had times where I just wanted to end my life because I couldn't take this anymore. And I'm only a
Mm,
kid. I'm only what, 15, 16 years old. I didn't really understand stuff.
yeah,
And it was crazy because, you know, even though I wanted to fit in, I always felt out of place, kind of thing. And it was just like, no matter, even when I finally did fit into a circle, I always felt out of place everywhere I was, everywhere I've been. And
hmm,
it's just crazy because, but I look back and it reminded me something you said about another dimension. I don't know if you remember this show from back in the day called Sliders.
oh my gosh, yeah, from the early '90s, I used to love watching
So
Sliders.
that's what that feels like to me.
Yes,
Like it's
absolutely.
like you in another dimension where, oh yeah, so Russia actually beat America. Oh, okay.
Right.
But then you're in another dimension. Oh, it's normal, but aliens exist or something. Like in this case, I
Hmm.
feel like I worked out of this thing, and now I live in, like, come on. If you would have told me when I was living in Bushwick that I'm gonna get married and live in Bayonne, you would look. I would look at you like, what the hell what the fuck is Bayonne? I didn't even know what the hell that existed. And
Yeah.
there's that saying, people from Jersey City and Hoboken, they say, oh, if it's in Bayonne, leave it alone. I'm like, okay. But now I kind of see why they say that. But I'm like, oh. But if you would have told me this back then, I would have thought you were crazy because Bayonne used to be very trailer parky ish, trash, or whatever. But it's little by little, it's getting gentrified, and I feel like I'm back in Brooklyn again. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is happening. Because if you go to Hoboken now, I feel like I'm in West 4th Street in Manhattan.
Mm,
That shit is fucking
wow.
crazy.
It's changed. See, I've not even been in New Jersey since 2009.
That's what I'm saying. Even like
So
you
I
go to
can't even.
Newark's, even Newark, some parts of Newark are not is actually pretty nice. Jersey City, like where I work at, I'm not gonna tell you where I work at because that's no one's business. But I work at a retail
Right.
store that's not that far from like the PATH train. I'll say that. And it's like, wait a second, like this part of Jersey City used to be bad. Now it's like condos and Goldman Sachs and shit like that. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
East New
It's
York. Go to East New York. There's condos there. What is going on here? And my whole thing is okay. Change is good, but is it for everybody or is it only for a certain group of society? Only for them, and that's it.
mm, I see where you're coming from. I mean, that's the way how it is in Detroit. Like, you know, I mean, when people think of Detroit, like, oh God, gunshots everywhere and violence everywhere. It depends what parts of Detroit you go to.
Yeah.
Um, but there's some parts of Detroit that have been gentrified. Absolutely. I mean, you go to parts of downtown Detroit, it looks absolutely beautiful in some parts. Absolutely beautiful. And
Wow.
there's like a historic part of Detroit as well. Um, they try to keep up the heritage from houses that were built, back in the 50s and what have you, and other places. I mean, some places have been torn down and revitalized, but there's some parts of downtown Detroit that are just absolutely stunning. And then there are
Yeah.
other parts of Detroit that, yeah, it does still have that. That's not the place you want to go, like Joy Road and some other spots where, it's infamous for. Oh yeah, if you go down that, I'm scared for you.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's like what is going on in this life? That's what I'm saying. It's like a whole warp zone thing. You ever see like you ever play Mario? If you go into that very top, like on the first level, when you're in the second, on the first world, second level, when you go on the very top, you could go into a warp zone and you're in a different level. You go to level 4. You can skip all the other ones. Do you know about
Right.
that in Mario, Super Mario Brothers, the first one?
I don't think I got that far in the game.
No, so in World 1 level 2, you know how you go into the tunnel and you're underneath?
Oh yeah, do 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 do.
Right. So if you go
Yeah.
all the way towards the end, right, you could go on the top of the ceiling on before you go into the tunnel, like to go out, and there's a warp zone that you could skip to level 4.
Okay, I do think I remember seeing that.
So that's kind of how I feel like we just warped into another place, and it's like, okay, this is something else. What's going on?
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it's just what it feels like. It's like okay, like every tunnel was okay. This is 2010. This is 2020s, and this is 2023 today or something. And it's just like, oh, okay, what's this? So you just like if you skip all the other years and go to the new year, it's like, oh, this is different. This wasn't like this is not where I used to live at. What's going on here? And you know what's crazy? My mom, she lives in Williamsburg. There's a company
Mhm.
that bought the Williamsburg projects, so they
Wow.
still work with housing, but now it's under a new ownership, which is crazy. Now my mom has to move out, go to a temporary apartment, renovate that just so she can move the hell back in. Like this is what it's come down to now. Like that is insane.
Well, I mean, they've even done the same thing in like a small town. I mean, the town where I live in. They took out all the projects, like literally torn them all down, and now they're restorative condos. I mean, it looks great. But it displaced like all the people who used to live there. Like all the people who lived there, like are displaced. Some of them did move back in, as far as I know. But
Right,
I know
right.
there's other people who probably didn't get to move back in there.
Bro, that's That's insane, bro. And that's what I'm saying because when Hurricane Sandy hit, especially in Coley Island, Brighton Beach, my wife was telling me that all the sand, you couldn't even see the road. And everybody that lived there that had houses, they lost their houses.
And that was devastating for me. That was like when Hurricane Sandy happened around 2007, 2008. It really felt like the end of an era
Yeah.
because I remember it was a kind of a thing. I would go down to Atlantic City, go on a boardwalk, and I would ride that blue roller coaster like over by the water. I would go and play the arcade and
Oh my god, who
just
plays
walk the
arcades
boardwalk,
anymore?
and
Dude, who
it was
plays arcades
so fun.
anymore? Who plays do they even exist
There
these?
still are arcade places.
Yeah, okay, as
This
far as New
matter of
York,
fact,
other
I
than
was
Dave
literally
and
at an
Buster's,
arcade.
well, come on, but other than Dave and
No, but no, okay, so they got a Dave and Buster's in Detroit, but there is a place in downtown Detroit. I believe it's in downtown Detroit. Yeah, called Barcade, and it's
Oh,
a bar,
Barcade. Oh,
but
I
it's
know
mostly an
Barcade.
arcade.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
originated
Barcade.
in New York, in Brooklyn. That's what the first one was in
Yep, yep, yep,
Williamsburg.
yep. We got one in downtown Detroit, and
Yeah, they got one in
man, I went
Jersey.
there
They
for
got
the
one in Manhattan. They got like,
yep.
yeah, I know Barcade. Yeah, I used to go there,
I
get
went
drunk,
there
and
for the
play
first
Donkey
time
Kong.
months ago. I went there for the first time months ago, and man, I felt like I went back in a time machine. Man, I became a big kid. I was playing like the Simpsons game. I was playing that X-Men video game, and I was playing
Terminator.
some Galaga.
Every
Oh
arcade has
yeah, I was
Terminator.
playing House of the Dead. Man, I was a big kid. I was in there for hours just playing video games. I
Bro,
was like,
you can't go
yes,
wrong, bro. Like a beer and or just to have a little drink and just play a video game. Yeah, that's perfect, dude. I remember when I used to hang out. This I don't want to say when I was in the world, but when when before I came to Christ fully and I was really, hanging out. Barcade was my spot. I would get like a PBR or whatever. Oh no, what did they have back? I think they had like a Miller Lite or something like that. And
hmm
I would get these coins. You could use. This is when you were allowed to use your credit card. Hey, take $10 out. And I want 10,000 coins. And I would go play these games. They had hockey table. They had all that shit at barcades, and I would be there for hours. I would be there like at 5 in the afternoon. I wouldn't leave until it closed
mm.
because it was so exciting. Because it was Terminator. There was
Oh,
this
yeah.
was the only one. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have Royal Rumble, the actual arcade game, WWF Royal
Oh
Rumble.
wow.
They had Donkey Kong. They had every arcade has Galaga. Let's be real.
Oh yeah, Gallagher. Like that's a
And
staple. If you don't have
Centipede.
Gallagher, are you even a real arcade if you don't have Gallagher?
That's true. That and Centipede. That was the other one.
Right, right.
Oh my god, it's insane, bro. Like I didn't know that's cool that they expand like that. Now I know if I ever go to Detroit, now I know there's a barcade because I
Yep,
love
yep.
barcade. Oh my god, man. But it's like, dude, I have it. But an actual arcade, because in Times Square there used to be an arcade. I think it was the Playland arcade, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And then I think they got shot up at, and then they closed it. I think it became a BB King, which you're not gonna believe this. Now it's a Target.
Wow.
It's a Target now. I went there recently, and you're gonna laugh at me, but weeks before I went to this city recently, they were talking about bakeries, and I said, I haven't had a cronut in so long because I used to go to the donut pub,
Okay.
and then I found out it was temporarily closed due to construction. So there was one on Astor Place and 8th Street. Pretty much if I take the PATH train to 9th Street or was it West Fort or whatever, Christopher Street or whatever it is, and there's the donut pub. It was 24 hours. And they had this thing called cronuts. So if a croissant and a donut had a baby, that's what that is.
Oh wow. I've never had
Bro,
that.
a
I didn't even know
cronut,
that existed.
bro. My coworkers were looking at me like, "What the fuck is a cronut?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna bring some,
It sounds like a made up name. It does, but bro, why
bro."
you
I
why
put
you
them
making
onto it. I put them on. They're like, "Yo, this is so good. Yo, can you get some more?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can get some more. I mean, you gotta give me money because it's $5 a freaking a cronut. It's like $5. So if you want six in a box, that's $30. Are you gonna give me $30?"
wow.
But bro, they had different ones. They had an eggnog flavor. They had a maple flavor. They had a apple cider flavor, regular flavor, glaze. It's bro, like cronuts are like The thing I remember when they first came out, people would wait online for these damn things. It was
Wow.
ridiculous. A cronut, like I put my wife on. She's like, "What the fuck is a cronut?" I gave it to her. She's like, "Oh my
Yeah, I've
god."
never heard of it until tonight.
Tonight. Oh my god, bro! But cronuts are a man. I think you know what? I should hit up Robert Calzi and ask him because he loves bagels and shit like that. I gotta ask him, bro. Do you know about cronuts? Because I told my brother. My brother's like, yeah, in Texas and California they have that shit. I was like, oh, that's good to know. If I go to Texas, now I know to get cronuts. Yeah, a croissant and a donut together. So it's basically the dough they use for a croissant, but the ingredients they use to make donuts.
Wow, that's creative.
Yeah,
That's creative.
bro.
Now you know what's expensive, but I love it, and I get it every single time I go down to like uh Great Adventure, Six Flags and stuff. Dipping dots,
Oh, I love dipping
dipping
dots.
dots.
Oh, if I go, oh my god, the only time I've seen those is usually in movie theaters. I've never,
Yeah,
and some 7-Elevens have it, but they have like the
you.
7-Eleven. They have like the bootleg versions of it.
Yeah,
God, and then what's that thing? Not I think Edie's makes it. It's oh my gosh, chocolates. It's like it's not a hash brown. It looks like a hash brown, but it's chocolate, and it's like vanilla ice cream and wrapped in. Oh my god! It comes in a red burgundy box or a can. Ugh. Oh my god! Watch it come to me later after we finish this episode. I swear. Oh my god! They make it all the time. It's like you can eat. It's like a little. Oh my god! You know what? I feel like if I keep dwelling on this, we're never gonna go anywhere. But it's Edie's. They make actually. You know, I have my phone on here. While I'm looking for it, I have to. Oh my god! And Edie's makes it. Edie's. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Hold on. Edie's. Hold on. Is it wait Edie's or Eddie's? How do you spell Edie's? That's sad.
Edie's. You mean Edie's ice cream? Edie's ice cream.
Yeah, Edie's ice cream. Um, maybe if I write dots, maybe it'll come up. Oh, dibs.
Dipping dots.
No, but no, this thing called dibs. DIB.
Oh,
Dibs,
okay.
and
I'm not
it's
sure what that
little.
is.
Yeah, when you get a chance, Google, you'll see what I'm talking about. But Edie's makes that, and it's Nestle's Crunch is the chocolate part, and the inside is vanilla ice cream.
That sounds delicious.
Bro, only 7-Elevens have this because I can't go to Walgreens and find that shit. It's so bad. It's so sad. And Nestle's Toll House was my favorite thing too, with the chocolate chip
Oh my God.
inside the vanilla, not.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Bro, oh my god, it's just crazy how life has changed so much that it's the little things. It's the little things.
Hmm.
These are little knickknacks that I love. I love these knickknacks, man. It's wow.
Oh yeah. Just even to the toys we used to play. Do you remember Pogs when Pogs was a thing?
Pogs, dude. I remember the freaking Hess truck, bro.
Oh my God, Hess. Remember? I don't even think they have Hess gas stations anymore.
No, it's
Yo,
Speedway now.
yeah, I used to have Hess truck, bro. I used to have the Hess
See,
truck.
if I would have known back then what I knew now, dude, that actually is worth money if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I would like to
Man,
think
I
that.
trashed my Hess truck. I'm so upset. I have trashed my Hess truck.
No, so one of my friends, he likes to save all his stuff, right? So this guy, he lives in Co-op City, my friend Audio, and he has the original Tonka trucks before they started making them the way they make now. It's like they were made out of hard metal trucks and
They were made
stuff.
of hard metal. They were made of
Yeah,
like hard metal. Because if you got hit with that, you were in pain.
you're
You
right.
were in
He
pain.
actually has a Tonka truck till this very day, like a fire truck, and it's the original way they made it. I'm like, dude, I think that's worth money. It has to be because they don't make Tonka trucks like that anymore.
Yeah, they definitely don't.
Oh my god, it's so crazy how we look back now. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like I think I was telling you earlier about the whole N64 thing. Like you go to back markets, like you could get it for what was it 169 or something like that. I forgot what the price was. I'm like, I remember N16. You talking about Golden Eye too. It was so crazy. I was like, damn, Golden Eye. I was talking about WWF No Mercy. WrestleMania 2000. What was the other one? Oh, All Star Baseball 2000 was my game. Me and my brother used to play that a lot.
Wow.
Video games have evolved a lot, man. Oh my god, like the new Call of Duty game. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
So this new game, my friend that I work with, he's a oh my god, he is such a gamer. So he said, oh, there's the new Call of Duty that came out, dude. The way the graphics is, it looks as if there's people walking on the street. That his girlfriend, his wife was like, oh, what movie is that? I'm like, that's not a movie. That's a game.
Wow.
He showed me a trailer of it. I was like, oh my god, like what is that? 4D, 4K, whatever the hell you call that? What the like, bro? It's insane.
Oh yeah, and like I remember back when we were playing our
It was all
little 8-bit games,
pixelated.
we're
Yeah,
like, "Ooh, we got the best stuff going on." Now we're looking at this like, "Yo, is that real? Is that real?
that's what
Is
I'm
that real?"
saying, dude. When the wrestling games were made out of boxes, it was like all pixelated box,
Yeah.
and then they would do. Oh my god, the graphics have. Dude, I don't know who to blame, like games or freaking like James Cameron who made Avatar, because it took him 15 years to make part two.
In that movie, I think right now,
He
he said he needs to
revolutionized
make.
graphics. That's what it is.
He
It
did. He did.
revolutionized.
He did. As a matter of fact, right now, as in theaters, he actually once again has hit a movie milestone. Where like the movie, he said the movie has to break even, and it's already made over $1 billion.
Yeah, he
But
wants to be a billionaire. Yeah, there was like a whole thing about him. Like, he wants to
but
be
here's the thing though, like when has James Cameron ever really lost on a movie he's made?
That's
I
true.
mean, think about it.
If you look at
Titanic,
Titanic, dude,
Terminator 2,
yeah,
like Avatar, Aliens,
you know
like
what's
come on
crazy
now.
when you see, but if you see Titanic, the way that movie was filmed, it was ahead of its time.
Terminator 2 was ahead of its
Yeah,
time.
but that's what I'm
I remember watching
saying.
T-1000, still to this day watching Terminator 2 and seeing the liquid metal. And this was back in 91, okay? This was back in 91 and it still is like, yeah, it's the graphics still hold up.
Yeah. Oh my god. Now you see that in 4K, it's even crazy. I was like, oh my god, like. Yeah, he oh my god, like it's I guess because he's like a graphic engineer, so I think that's what makes it even more profound with James Cameron. I'm just like, oh my god, like it's wild, man. It's just, oh my god, wow, wow. Well, I think we're gonna just end this right here
Already.
because it's already been like an hour and change. But I guess I can just say, Leon, welcome to this podcast, being my co-host. I'm happy that it was finally meant to be, and I'm freaking ecstatic, excited, and then just doing this off the fly episode just proves the point. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace. All right.
Peace.